Questions? If not, the first public hearing is closed.
The second public hearing is to accept public comments on a second proposed map amendment to change the zoning of parcel number 17-042-00-00-001-000 at 662 State Route 43
Questions?
from its current zoning of R1 low-density residential
the first
to
public
IR
hearing is closed.
industrial research and office district.
Again, are there questions? We'll move on.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. The public hearing is adjourned.
If you're okay with this, I need your, like, approved and the mayor signature. That's what I was telling you about.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into
Border control.
border control.
Border control.
Border control. I was about to get there. But thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey, Michael.
Scary when people are reading your mind.
I talked to him like an hour ago. He said he was going to be here.
I gave him a wake-up call this morning.
All right, so we got the minutes that you and I did because he wasn't here last.
I don't know.
Hope or even Melanie. I called him today and said he's 90 years old. He's a Sheldon. He said, "Sir, I need help. The neighbor's hedges are too high. Can the city come and trim them?" And I said, "No, it's private property. We don't do that." He's like, "Well, I'm 90 years old." And I said, "Can't you talk to them?" I said, "I'm not against Smith."
I welcome everybody here. First on the agenda is Committee of the Whole. We have some boards and commission people interviews tonight. So would you read the names?
Yep. The first applicant is Kenny Crookston. He's applied for the City Flag Redesign Committee. Go ahead and go up.
Come to the podium, give your name and address, and a short rationale why you want to be on this committee.
Sure. Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Kenny Crookston. I live over on 631 Vine Street. I'm just this opportunity to work as part of a team to help develop a flag for the city is just something that I find extremely exciting. I think I said it before when I was here. You know, I've always found flag design interesting. I know it's a little dorky, but like it's just something I've always found super interesting. I'm excited for the opportunity to work as part of a team to kind of help develop something that our entire city community can be proud of, something that can represent our values, our people, or just the entire thing. So I'm really excited for the opportunity, and I just thank you for even considering it. I appreciate it.
All right, are there questions? Jan, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
What did you think of the flag that we had presented? I thought it, myself, I thought it had some merit there, but I think some things were missing. Do you,
My opinion on it?
yeah.
Am I on the record? Yeah. I really, to be honest, I really didn't like it. I think if I could, to me, when I saw the bridge and the trees, I think those are kind of pieces of it. Definitely the trees I see as being
Well, that's what I mean, yeah.
a big part of the city. The water, maybe the color blue that was on there, huge part of the city. The bridge, I would say to me, I don't, when people talk about the city of Kent, and this is just my opinion right out the gate, you know, that while the bridge is downtown in the middle there, I don't see that as being a focal point of what people think of when they come to Kent. And I think simplifying a design, making something that looks clean, and something that is like easily recreatable, and something that is not like it's not a fad. It doesn't look like it's going to look great today and great maybe 5 years from now, but 10 years from now we're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is as dated as dated could be. I think finding something that's solid, clean, and kind of brings in those elements that people think of when they think of Kent, I think is probably a better way to go.
Okay, well, thank you. That's good.
Further questions? Oh, Robin?
What elements what elements of the city do you find that represent the city to you?
To me,
most?
yeah, I think that, you know, starting off, I think obviously the river, where we're located, right on top of the river. I think that there's historical significance for the city of Kent as being part of the Underground Railroad that I think would be interesting to tie in. I think, you know, the origin of the city of Kent being two different kind of, not two different cities, but two different localities kind of merging into one. One of my, just kind of off the top of my head ideas was using something with two stars in it to represent those two cities, right? Coming and joining into one sort of star. What that would look like on a flag, I have no idea, and I'm just kind of spitballing. But I think like some of those things, and figuring out a way to integrate those pieces into a flag helps represent any kind of what we are.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
And there's plenty. I mean, obviously, there's plenty more, and I'm sure anybody who's here has probably got like, you know, 8, 10, 12 more ideas. And
Okay, thank you.
awesome. Thank you. Appreciate
Next,
it.
Amy?
Kenny. Zach Garster?
Name and address for the minutes.
Good evening. I'm Zach Garster. I live at 551 Fairchild Avenue, top of the hill by the water tower. The reason I applied to be part of the committee is that I've got 10 years of graphic design experience, and although I haven't lived here in Kent for nearly as long as probably many of you have, I'm just looking for a way to use my abilities to further the mission of the city and to help my community and to do what I can to be a participating member of the community at large. And part of what I do every day is just part of my job is find ways to tell stories graphically and to communicate, you know, for customers, for whoever else, but to communicate, you know, a story in a graphical way. So that's what I have practice doing, and that's when I saw that there was a need for committee members to design the flag. That's what called me to apply. So.
Other questions?
I'm asking the same question about the previous.
I got to be honest, I didn't even see the previous flag, so I would love to see it and give my feedback on it, but I just saw the call for applications like a week or two ago, so I didn't even get a chance to see the proposed flag that was up, but yeah, I'd love to see it and give my feedback on it. Yeah.
Further questions? All right, thank you. Next.
Valerie Landis.
Hey everyone, Valerie Landis, 409 West Branch Street. I'm really excited to be here today. I think a flag is very important for any city, and this is a golden opportunity to have this chance to build something amazing that will last a lifetime. If you recall my email back on March 3rd when I talked about what makes good flag design, I think sticking to those 5 basics of keeping it simple, finding meaningful symbolism, sticking to 2 to 3 basic colors, and removing any lettering or seals, and then also being distinctive and making sure each piece has a relative meaningful idea to it. I think that those principles are very fundamental for flag design, so that would be the principles I would bring to the team. And also make sure the community is involved. When we do have the final version of the flag, I think that input is the critical part. Creating the flag is going to be the behind-the-scenes tough part, but getting the city's input on those 3 designs or 2 designs that we end up with, getting that community involvement is what I think is the most important part. So I want to use my voice and my network to help do that for Ken. So that's kind of what I hope to do for the team.
Okay, are there any questions, Gwen?
So when your role on this, like flag commission, do you view it as designing the flag or as soliciting like examples of what the flag could be from resident artists and things like that? Do you view it as more of a kind of organizer or actual creator?
I mean, I feel like I have design aesthetics that I could bring to the team, and ideas that would help incorporate the key factors of Kent. You know, not being here that long, I feel pretty adapted to Kent and what things are important as far as symbolism. So I would like the design part. That part's fun. But I think that the community involvement and making sure that getting everybody else's input is critical too, for part of the design and getting the word out there that, you know, this is happening. So I've already branched out and talked to like groups that are part of Kent at different events that have been happening in the city since March, letting them have awareness of how we are doing a brand new flag, and this is a golden opportunity to be involved and getting their input on them using their social media pages, their network, their voice to help advertise and talk about this conversation and making it really involved. So hopefully if you decide to have me on the team, you know, we can expand that.
Further questions? You?
No, well, who? High side, Robin?
You have a comment?
No.
No. All right, thank you. Next.
Mario Morales.
Mario Morelos, 1382 Elizabeth Court, River Bend. I'm interested in being part of the process of redesigning the flag. It seems like a good fit for my background and based on what I've learned. I'm an entrepreneur and I enjoy the creative process, and I'm hoping to help facilitate the collaboration for this project. So I love Kent. I've been living in Kent for over 20 years. My kids are growing up here in Kent, and just for the love for the city, I'd like to be part of this committee. Thank you.
Wait, are there questions? I guess you got enough easy.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Amy, next.
Jonathan Rittinger.
All right.
Hello, I'm John Ridinger, and don't worry about the last name, everyone.
Sorry.
I've heard every version of it that exists. I was a teacher too, so 837 Harold Avenue in Kent. My background is not only have I lived in Kent my whole life. If you've ever read or referred someone to the Wikipedia page on Kent, you're welcome. I pretty much do that on spare time. The history of Kent is something that's very important to me, but flags is something that's very important to me as well. I'm actually a member of the Flag Institute, which is based in the United Kingdom, and I'm a past member of the North American Vexillological Society, or Vexillological Association, NAVA. The only reason I'm not in anymore is just because I didn't need to be in two. And what we heard earlier about those basic design elements, those are very important to me too, and I think that's what was largely missing from the earlier designs that I've seen. That a lot of times when we see people think of a flag and they think of something that has to look pretty, and What looks good on a canvas may not look good on a flagpole. And if you think of some of our most recognizable flags, like that one right there, it's very simple. It's just stripes, a blue field, and stars, and 3 colors. But it's very recognizable, it's very identifiable. And so my hope as in the committee is that we, not so much that we design the flag, but that we guide, that we lay kind of the groundwork for what we want the flag to look like. For instance, defining what shape we're going to use. Are we going to use the Ohio flag shape? Are we going to use a rectangle? What our colors are going to be? What symbols are we going to use? What about Kent do we want to be our main symbols? Do we want to divide it into segments? Do we want a tree on the flag? I mean, that kind of stuff. And more or less guiding it, and then as designs, and then to get the community involved, you get those designs, then you narrow it down. How does this fit what we're looking for? And then you make adjustments from those designs that come in as needed. That's how I've seen it done, and I think that's the best way for us, because committees have a tendency sometimes to want to include everything. And then instead of a flag, you get a really nice quilt.
With promise.
I don't want a quilt blowing in the breeze from
Mayor, the questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sidoti.
I have a question. Did I get your name right at graduation? That's all
I believe so. The thing that you messed up, Mr. Sidoti, was that we were the class of 2000, but we were the first one, so we were the class of 19-2000.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. No, I have another serious one, though. Your interest in flags, you've always been interested in history, and ever since I've known you, that's always been your thing. So what do you think you're going to bring then to that flag design or that discussion?
Well, I've looked at a lot of flags, not only like your classic like Ohio or United States flag, but also city flags. I've definitely studied the city flags a lot and looked at, because city flags and county flags are kind of this obscure thing that a lot of people have, but you don't see them very often, and people don't know what they are. If any of you have been to a Cleveland Guardians game and seen the 3 flags that blow in the outfield, the 3rd flag is the City of Cleveland flag. Most people don't know what that flag is. They're like, why is the flag of France blowing in the outfield? Because nobody knows that it's the flag of Cleveland, and it has the seal in the middle of it, because you can't see it unless you're close to it, because it violates several things of flag design. So stuff like that. And I've looked at a really good flag. If you want a really good flag, city design is Chicago. It's very recognizable. It's used a lot in any type of marketing they do. A lot of the logos that they've been using for the All-Star games that they've hosted incorporate elements of the Chicago flag in their design. The 6-point star, you see a lot that's on their flag. It's very, very visible in Chicago. It's a very well-known symbol of the city, more than any building or other symbol. It's that 6-pointed red star with the blue bars. You see that everywhere in Chicago.
Very good.
Is there further questions? It's not just a general question, and resolutions are resolutions, but there is a resolution on the books what's supposed to be on that flag. So.
And again, that's something that I think the committee should look at and present to council to amend that. I've read what it says, and I don't want us to be bound by something that was written in 1977.
All right, I'm just throwing it out there.
And that's how I see the committee, like redefining that for a long term. I think I don't know that the circumstances were when that was created, but I definitely think that would be something that when we're looking at it, that's what we need to look at, really defining. Because of that, I was aware of that.
Robin?
Yeah. I was wondering, being as you brought up my and Valerie's evidently hometown flag, the Chicago, with the city, I have no clue what those stars represent. Do you think when you guys get together in your committee, that you will also do a kind of outreach to the community, giving them a little background on the history and the value of exactly what this city, the origins of the city, and why you might have focused on certain areas to get their input on things like that. I think it'd be nice, because like you said, I have no clue why Chicago's flag is the way it is.
And bringing up Chicago's flag again, one of the reasons they have the 4 stars is it represents 4 different eras of Chicago's history. And again, do we have to copy another city's flag? We don't, but we can look at how other flags have used that, and we can, that's one of the things that we can decide as a committee. How do we want to break up Kent's history? I mean, I personally thought of it as, basically you have 4 eras. You have the prehistory of Kent, you have the early settlement as the mills, you have the railroad era, and you have the current era, the college town era of Kent. 4 very distinct eras of Kent's history, and you can look at that. The river, the canal, how can those be symbolized? Very easily, they can, with straight lines or squiggly lines, very, very visible. Cincinnati has another very simple flag that the river is very much a part of Cincinnati, and so you have 3 wavy lines on it. It's very simple, but it's very obvious what it is. Stuff like that. There are very simple ways that we can show, 2 double lines parallel. There's your railroad. Or a blue line for the canal, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll vote on this in 2 weeks. So that's it for the Flag Committee. We're going to move on to the Portage County Regional Transit Authority. Amy?
We have Stacy Wilson.
Hi, I'm Stacy Wilson at 341 Majors Lane, and I would like to be on the PARTA board. I'm still down where I'm going to put my energy in my volunteer time to 4 main areas. The PARTA board, we would take care of 2 of those areas, one being equal access. Lots of people in the county don't have cars, can't drive for all kinds of reasons, and I think that having bus access to where they need to go is extremely important. The other being the climate crisis that we're facing now. We have solar that's useful, and we have electric cars and buses right on the cusp of doing some really amazing things and getting off the fossil fuel, and I would like to help spearhead that in PARTA. And that's pretty much why I'd like to be on.
Okay, questions? When's the last time you rode a bus?
I moved here 2 years ago from Philly, and I did use the buses and trains in Philly.
All right, just wondered.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
My last few years living and working in Houston, I used the bus to get to work every day.
Okay. I guess nobody else has any questions. Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
All right. That's it. We still have vacancies on the Board of Zoning Appeals, Civil Service, Fair Housing Board, Loan Review, Planning Commission, and Stormwater. Like I said, we'll talk about the applicants in executive session tonight, and we'll vote in 2 weeks. So thank you for applying. Okay, moving on to the next item, discussion of the proposed community liaison. Just a little background. We've gone through what the city is doing with Heart and Soul. We had a presentation by the NAACP of their thoughts on this, and now I guess tonight we're up to council discussion which direction they want to take this. So does anybody want to start it?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor. So we had, I thought, a really helpful presentation from the group last month, and it sort of built on the multicultural stuff that, as you noted, Mr. Mayor, I had shared in whatever month that was. I'm losing track of my months. But I think it starts to begin to develop a framework for what we're already doing, and hopefully what would fit best to keep advancing the causes that I think everybody around the table supports the cause. That's never been the issue. Helping people that are underrepresented become more engaged in their community, have a community that's welcoming to them, that's beneficial to them, that they value. All those things, you have said those, and it's not just you. It goes back 20 years to all your bicentennial plans and all the different planning work that was done in the community. That is a theme that's always at the top. The people of Kent are really what matters, and
I think we try to resonate that in all our work. Our downtown renovation, I'm going to say it, Jim's heard it 100 times, we intentionally try to make it as people-friendly as possible because we felt like our biggest asset were the people. We're a small town. Let's amplify what makes small towns great, and that's all of us in this room and those in this community that visit, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we've established that baseline. Now the question is, how can we amplify? And I know the NAACP was talking about initially a potential committee of some sort, but I have to say what resonated to me, I think it was Greg, I don't remember which speaker it was, but I thought it was Greg that made the point, well, maybe, a staff position. And that got us thinking, and I didn't want to spend too much work until I had a chance to make sure you all were, that resonated with you. Staffing is a big deal. My first call was to Rhonda, and she hung up on me, and then I had to call her back. Because we don't have an abundance of money, but we do certainly have needs, and this isn't the only need. I mean, Chief Myers isn't here, but every meeting we go to, we always joke, well, he's going to be asking for something today. So he does. But it's legit, it's credible, and so it's always about choosing between pressing needs. I mean, honestly, that's kind of our budget message. How many years have I done it? 17. I'm pretty sure it'll be the same. We have more needs than we can afford to do, so we do our best to prioritize. So really kind of what I'm hoping to get for here is a little bit of a sense of your priority on this particular item. Talking to Rhonda, talking to HR, talking to Hope, I think pretty much all the department heads I probably ended up talking to about the concept of some sort of community liaison. And I also want to say we spent a lot of time philosophizing about the national dialogue, the national issues, and in the end, I think you made life more local. You said, let's do what we can do locally, and let's keep the focus on the local. And I want to use that same sort of test for a part-time position that we're talking about, a liaison position. This is not a philosophical position. The NAACP has their committees already that they talk and they deal with issues. We've had the Interfaith Alliance. We've got the Portage, there's a collaborative. I mean, there are a number of those kind of higher level conversation, dialogue committees going on. I don't think we need another one of those, my observation, and that's kind of what I think I heard from you all. What nuts and bolts stuff can we be working on? And so to me, this isn't just I think we have to be even intentional in the title. I think Greg was right on point when he called it, I think he used the phrase community liaison. I don't think I came up with that. I think that was his. But because that begins to focus it on community, what can be done in the community. And so I wanted to at least float that back to you today. We can do a lot more work, obviously, on it to kind of flush it out logistic-wise. But I didn't want to overinvest in it if it's something you weren't interested in enough to have us go back and do some more digging and some extrapolating and calculating. And I think our thinking as a group of department heads, somewhat because it's financial situation, but also easing our way into the water, is a part-time community liaison. That gives us a chance to kind of incrementally continue to build on what we're doing. And I think it's important to say, as I think Garrett has said it to me before too, we just haven't done a great job of telling the story of all that we are doing. And I know after the multicultural heart and soul presentations, and even the night Bridget was presenting her CDBG programs and the funding opportunities and things that have gone on, I had a lot of comments after the meeting from representatives that were here from the NAACP, from the university, different places, that said, I never knew you were already doing all that stuff. And I think we heard that when Christy came back too. That was part of her opening remarks, is we didn't necessarily know all that was going on. So we still need to do a much better job of doing that. And to me, that's part of what this person can do too, be that champion that's out there making sure people know what's going on. I did try to at least come up with some, if I'm sitting in your chair I'm saying, well, what exactly is the nuts and bolts kind of things that a person like this would be doing? From a very practical perspective, a lot of it is that championing, ambassadoring city interests with the underrepresented groups. What comes to my mind was Bridget. Remember a couple of years ago, we had senior citizens that were pretty distraught with the Four Seasons and some of the management issues. And it's not like we had someone on staff. It really was a private matter between the tenants and the management company. But people called their city. Can you help us with our management company? And Bridget certainly has experience dealing with management companies and that particular one. So she got involved, and it became something that stuck to her, and she spent a lot of time in that. Not that that's a bad thing. It helped. It absolutely helped resolve the situations. There were safety concerns, but that's a perfect example of it's not really in her job description. And so there are sort of opportunity costs when she's doing that and not doing her day job. Again, it was a priority, so we jumped on it. She jumped on it like she always does, did a great job. But I think in the big picture, that's probably not the best use of your community development director. So that's the kind of very hands-on task. It was a lot of meetings, it was a lot of listening, it was a lot of coordinating between the management. I think we could see that, and that was just with seniors. I can imagine that being repeated in different ways with international people of international origin, or in this case, African American community, Asian community, Hispanic community. I mean, our communities are small because we're a small community, but they still matter, and it still takes time when there are issues. Frankly, the other group that I thought of this morning was the handicapped community. Occasionally we get calls from folks that are visually impaired or wheelchair, and they have certain issues that pop up that they need help with. Again, we don't often have a staff person that takes the lead on that, but this person could be part of that lead. And as an internal position, they take it right back to the departments that need to work with. I can imagine Melanie's group was, with ramps, sidewalk ramps. We certainly do some sidewalk ramps whenever we replace them now, but maybe there's one or two that we don't even know really need. There's a brand new resident that's visually impaired and they need that done, but we don't know, and they don't know who to call. I mean, I don't know that, but those are the kind of things we should be able to help more with. So that was kind of the thought process. I think a huge piece of it, you've heard some of this, you've seen it nationally, regionally. Hiring people is really hard these days. So we could use every bit of help we could get in recruitment. I know Nick and Mike Lewis have done more and more where they're spending more and more time outside the city. If they can't get them to come to us, they're going to them to try to talk to folks in other cities, in other places that have more minorities, to try to generate interest. And that, to me, is certainly an area. It's great that they do that. They need to do that. But again, there's an opportunity cost, and your police chief and your lieutenant are spending all that time doing that. There could be someone else doing that. That applies across the board. I mean, we often focus on police, but our fire department, Melanie's group, I mean, you pretty much top to bottom, we're seeing more turnover than we've seen in a long time. And it's not that people are dissatisfied. There's good solid reasons for their leaving. There's not like a pattern of, they're not happy here. No, they got more money over there, so they're going over there, or they got more vacation time, or they're retiring. So I would love to we've talked about more training opportunities. And I don't mean just training at the big picture in terms of implicit bias, because trust me, there is a lot of that goes on. But there's a whole bunch more training opportunities that I think we could be doing internally and externally. We've talked about, if you look at the data for civil service exams, who's taking them? That's step one. We need as many broad people interested in taking the test, but then they need to do well on the test. And part of doing well is understanding how the test works. Maybe there's some training that can go along with that. We've talked about training to take a test. I know when my kids were young enough, we sent them to the ACT testing, paid a fortune for that. But, you know, so that when they took their ACT test, they could go to college and do better on the exam. I mean, that's not some novel concept. That's certainly been around, and other places have done it too. ACT, SAT. They're both. I mean, a lot of college. Well, anyways, Jim pointed out that, you know, it wasn't that long ago that we adopted a Title VI program that's part of our federal funding requirements. Again, Jim and his group kind of take those duties on, but to that extent, that would be a natural area for someone like this to be working on, because that has to do with discrimination and making sure that the proper practices are being followed. And that kind of leads me into the next piece. I don't know if it's training or just mentoring. In other words, getting more minority-owned businesses, small businesses, woman-owned businesses to bid on our jobs. And sometimes there's paperwork, sometimes it's confusing. You know, sometimes we don't have a say in it. It's a state job. You do it the way the state tells you, but maybe we can help those businesses. So someone could be working on that. Why not? You know, and certainly in this current day and age when prices are going up, the more bidding we can get, the better pricing we would like to think we could get. There's always the policy review and update stuff. That's kind of part and parcel. Keeping people on the job, onboarding and retention seems to be we've had a lot of internal discussions as a department head team saying, you know, maybe it's time to look at this. Maybe we need to look at this because other cities are outbidding us for our employees because of, and we're never going to be able to outcompete based on salary because there's wealthier communities than Kent. But are there other things that we could do? We allow lateral transfers. Nick's talked a lot about that between police departments. Is there a way to work with civil service and allow lateral transfers? Is there a way to allow service credits? So like Hope, who's worked pretty much her entire career in municipal government, and when we're trying to hire and we're telling her, well, yeah, you're not going to get any credits for all the service, the 25 years of service that you've already had. You got to start from ground zero because that's the way our policies are set up. Well, you know, that was very painful, and she was a trooper, and we worked through some of that, but because she wanted to work here. But it puts us at a competitive disadvantage. Other cities are doing things that we're not doing, and to me, that's very much an area that this person could work on too, and work with Suzanne, because Suzanne's like, I only got so many hours in the day. I'm a one-person team for this entire city. So I'm talking far more than I intended to, but I wanted to give you that framework. And that's kind of where I'm at, and I really do welcome your thoughts, if that's the direction you want to go or not. So.
Yep. Just a minute. You know, staff and Dave has worked very hard on this, coming up with comments, suggestions of what can be done. And I realize we're not Akron, we're not Cleveland, but we're Kent, Ohio, and we do have some characteristics that could be different, but and that's what we're working with. I just want to throw out, and you brought up a hiring process. Last night up at Roosevelt, they did the fire testing, and we all talked about this up to then, and some of us got the brochures out where we could get them, where we thought they'd do the most value. 72 people signed up to take that test, 14 no-shows. There were 2 minorities and 4 females. So, you know, there's the problem. We're not either getting the information on it or people aren't interested enough to apply. So, Garrett.
Yes or no? Is this position a result of the NAACP's ask for a committee?
I don't want to say it's a result, but it certainly is part of that conversation.
Okay. And so then is the position more or less because we need help hiring as opposed to trying to appease one particular interest group?
For me, it's more the value it brings to the organization. I mean, I think we can stand pretty strong on our track record as is for our commitment to these things. To me, this was one of those organic opportunities that all of a sudden the dots connected, for me at least, where I was like, you know, I'm hearing this, I'm seeing this, maybe this is the right time to raise this issue, kind of put this on the table. I respect what I know what you're asking, and that's an absolutely fair question to ask, and trust me, it wasn't like we sat in a room with department heads and everybody said, let's do this. There was hard questions, you know, is this the right time? Is it, I've got this need over here, and is this really more important than that need? And so please don't mistake it. We wouldn't bring it to you if we thought it was just a politically correct move to make. That's not, I think we haven't done that, and I stand, like I said, on our record for that.
And you mentioned Suzanne, but would the position be under HR or community development, or do you spread it around that way? And what, I guess as you thought about this, what's the direct report to who and whom? And
some of those logistics still need to be worked out, because I didn't want to get in front of you guys. I didn't want to be so far out there and you're like, hey, I don't want to do that. But we tossed around HR, we tossed around law, and we tossed around directly to me as a city manager direct report. So it would be a crossover position where it would work with all departments. So that's why I think those kind of three are ones.
Even with the unions, any of the unions, I mean, they're all their own distinct entity, right? So you have the police, the fire, you know, AFSCME. Is there a logistics problem with trying to somebody? I think an ombudsman's a better word than liaison, but it would seem that there could be an issue, or would there be an issue with the unions in terms of who's representing who, who's promoting who, who's working for who?
I mean, I don't see us changing the contract terms or processes are involved. I see it as just another resource that tries to help all the departments do their job, attract quality personnel, but they still get plugged into the same interview process. I mean, we're not changing. There may be some tweaks that we've talked about can be done if the civil service, you know, how certain scoring gets done. And I know, like I said, lateral transfer, chief's got ideas. There's different ideas that are being tossed around, but I don't know, I don't want to overstate it. Maybe I need to dig more on that. Nothing bounces out at me as being
I guess what just jumps to mind is that, like, that person that has that job is going to have a lot of masters, so to speak, because there's going to be a lot of demand from the different departments because of our need for hiring and trying to get applicants and that kind of stuff. So having a defined chain of command in that case would, but I think it sounds very good. Some details to be hashed out. So,
John?
Somewhere in my head, I'm thinking that this liaison position is a person that's supposed to work to promote inclusion and equality throughout the city. You know, not necessarily with the staff, but with all the residents and everybody involved. So then I'm listening to you, and it sounds like maybe there's more than that involved. So I guess what I'm asking myself is, if I were to say what this person's job description is, what would that be?
Right. That needs more work. I wanted to try to at least come in with a few thoughts for you. I also see it as, remember that compassionate city? I know you were a big advocate of that, and the couple that brought that to our attention, and we sort of couldn't keep up with that. That to me is another area where this person could circle back on some of those, a welcoming city, compassionate city. Even our, I don't see any reason why we would exclude them from our heart and soul work too. I think a lot of this fits. So I feel like the social networking aspects is going to be a big part of this job. Now, day to day, I need to flush out more specifically what exactly that means. And that's an absolutely fair question. I mean, trust me, we need to know that before we even can, you know, take this thing anywhere.
So as I say, my understanding was to have a position to try to enlarge our inclusion and equality in the city, and make more people aware of, you know, what we have to offer. And so I don't know, I'd hate to see you bring in a person as a liaison and they're running blueprints or something, you know.
Done, John? Heidi, I think you were next. We're going to walk up the line.
Sure.
Okay. John, I think that John kind of hit it as far as, kind of working out a job description and also some benchmarks. How would we know that this position is effective? The nature of the liaison would be more outreach, but also inreach. And it could be, really, one of the benchmarks could be something around engagement and helping to engage more of a diverse community in Main Street events, heart and soul, boards and commissions. That could be something, because that's something we've been kind of despairing over. How do we do that? How do we reach out and help people, get that sense of this is your community, and then also giving voice to people so that we know, well, maybe there's some things that we can do better to make this a more welcoming, truly welcoming community. And I really like the idea of working with the international families, because I know, or students, because I know that many of them felt disconnected. They come here to get the American experience, and they don't necessarily get that. They hang out with their, their own country people, and so it's disappointing to them, having hosted several international people, that they confide that they're kind of jealous. They wanted to, get to know some people too, and here's a way that maybe we can do that. There seems to be, certainly there's a lot of action, and nuts and bolts, like you say, that can be done. We don't want to, we want to make sure that it's well defined, so that somebody doesn't get overwhelmed, and also feel like this is your job, it's not anybody else's job. It's all of our job, really. Help us do our jobs better, help us be more inclusive, help us be more engaging, help us truly be the diverse community we know we can be. And this is really part of our mission that we've talked about. We've built a lot of the physical infrastructure, and we want to, one of our next big focuses, and we've been working on it, is really building the social infrastructure, this, building the cultural fabric, or getting to get more people to participate in what is Kent. And the exciting thing is, we do that already. We could do it even better, and I think we could really be a leader in this. And I think this is one way that we can kind of take the next few steps forward in kind of, who said connecting the dots, but in connecting the dots, the things that we really yearn to have, to do a better job at and feel a little frustrated about. So I think that's a really welcome idea, that I believe it is.
Tracy, did you have your hand up? Mike? Gwen?
So just to touch on a couple of things that Dave brought up, so just about different departments already kind of expending resources away from one thing to another. I know that our fire department has the diversity days that I saw, and also Nick's program, the Explorers program. And I know that there's people on staff that are working with those programs. Melanie has gone to job fairs at the high school and things like that. So we're already actually expending the energy on it that would normally be spent in different, this, I guess I sort of see like centralizing this, kind of making a point person on it that can help with some of these things, so we don't have to pull people out of their regular day-to-day, of what they're doing, and then this is like an extracurricular activity because they believe in it. As a city, I think this is a great way to formalize it. It was a word that was used when the NAACP was here, and I kind of like that. I personally think that the city is a fantastic employer. We've got great positions, career positions available that could be available to our high school students if they knew that the water treatment plant, needed certain things. And I've talked to Dave about potentially creating an internship program or something like that, but we just don't have the staff for that. That's a huge undertaking. If you have somebody with some hard skills looking at statistics, looking at HR, perhaps some civil service, kind of some of that background, I can really see this paying off very well. I think it's a wonderful city to work in. I think for me, somewhat greedily, I'd love to see our high school students, come up, and work for the city, because I think that's a fantastic opportunity there. But I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of potential in this position. I think it's something that it's a little bit of a long game. It's sort of a farm system for city employment. But I think it's worth investing in at this point, especially if we can do it in a part-time way to kind of dip our toe in it. I think it'll reap some dividends. And like I said, we're already seeing the departments branching out and doing that more and more. So this seems like a really appropriate time for us to provide a little bit more centralized effort.
You're next, Roger.
I'm last, huh?
No, I didn't. I have two more tomorrow.
Just picking on you. Well, I have a lot of thoughts, Dave, as I usually do. I struggle with the term liaison. I think we are the community liaison. I think the elected officials to the city, we should be liaison to our community. So I struggle with that liaison concept. That's just me. I like the ombudsman idea because I think that's what we're talking about. But I want to go back to, I want to go all the way back to when we first had this conversation from the NAACP. And quite candidly, I think we all were kind of flabbergasted at the approach. And quite candidly, it was awkward at best on the approach. But we need to set that all aside. Is it not true that we were made aware of data, regardless of where that data came from? We were made aware of data, and we even dug more into data and discovered that there were things that we, the administration and council, were unaware in terms of being able to actually look at the types, the categories of applicants that we've had. And so my concern is shouldn't this position be laser-like focus on trying to solve the problem if we perceive that it is a problem that our staffing isn't representative of the makeup of our community? To me, it's very simple and very clear. And if we don't clearly define what we want to solve, okay, if we feel that we want to solve that or we want to do better at it, or if we don't clearly define that, we're going to be doing the same things we've always done and have the same outcomes. I'd love to see someone with maybe some technical expertise to come in and to take a look at how do we build that. See, we're already talking about this liaison person, but is that the right way to actually, is that the right piece to get at what we all want to happen? Because I know around this table we all wanted those things to happen organically. Heart and Soul is an example. Going all the way back when we started this, we all felt that organically, through some of these efforts on our part, we were going to see these type of issues resolve themselves. I mean, they weren't issues because we always thought that was going to work. And I just am worried that this broad-based approach, we're not going to get at what we really want to get at. Because I don't think I heard from the NAACP, I don't think I've heard from anyone in the community that the initial approach was, well, here's your answer, and our pushback, I pushed back because I don't think that was an appropriate thing to have a community commission. We are the community commission, for goodness sakes. If there are people who have issues, I mean, we get people coming in, they have issues from the mundane to truly the complex in terms of, and where do they come? They come to their city council people, they come to us. And then we work with administration to try to work through those type of things. So to me, having another commission is outrageous. I don't think we need that. But I'm kind of like with Heidi. I really want to clearly have what's this person going to do? Are we going to direct them? Are we going to really be honest and transparency about the data and say, we need help in trying to, this data doesn't seem to reflect what we keep saying about our community. Are there things that we could be doing differently? We need that type of help, I think. And that's just me. That's me. Been beaten in these bushes for many years as an educator. Expand our minority teaching population. We were never able to have kids come into a school that was reflective of their community in terms of racially, in terms of even, we were even, in some cases, we had more females than males. I mean, we didn't have that balance. We didn't have so all I'm saying is that I don't care what you call it, but I hope we really clear, let's take a look at what are our goals. This is what we want to have accomplished, and make sure that person, that's what we're putting our money towards to get that done. And yes, the nice stuff about being out in the community and challenging the NAACP to help their constituents, so to speak, to help get more people willing to apply or look at jobs and everything. I really think that's in that's their thing. They need to be able to do that. They need to help us get more people interested in working for the city of Kent. It's our responsibility is to make sure they get a fair shot at a job. But I don't know that it's our job, personally. I don't know that it's our job I don't know we can beat the drums any louder, so to speak, about how welcoming we are, and yet we're not getting the applicants. So to me, that's their job. Their job. So this person, I think, is more of a technical, in my opinion. I think we need to use this person, utilize this person, to be hopefully reaching out to other communities and finding out what they're doing differently in terms of civil service. What are they doing differently in terms of making sure that they're getting an abundance of applicants? Many will be called then, but not everyone's going to get hired, obviously, because they got to meet the mark. But I'm just worried. I'm just worried about this position being more of that vanilla kind of, we're going to go out and we're going to talk with people, we're going to build, try to build rapport with people, and in the end, we're still not going to get what is pretty much been laid in our laps. That look at here's some data that just doesn't seem to support what we keep talking about. How wonderful this town is, and how welcoming we are, and how we engage everyone in the community. So my perspective is, whatever you do, I think we got to have very clear goals in terms of this, we want this person to do. And I think one of them has to be the data that we've had laid out in front of us, to really take a look at that data and try to work through it. It's kind of like the Moneyball idea in baseball. And I think it's the same issue. It's been laid on us. We need to be honest in our transparency and say, yeah, we need to figure out how to do this, and we need someone to help us do it. So Liaison, I don't know if can help us. That's just my opinion.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
You want to key in on this?
Yeah, I was very, very interested in what Dave had to say. I think you're on the right track, Dave. I think we really do need, whatever you call it, a liaison, a ombudsman, but I think you and this administration and council need to work on this, and it's something that I think you're right. I think it's the time to do it, and I think that I was very impressed with all the things that you had to say. So.
Okay. Robin.
Yeah, there's a reason I waited longer, because I did want to get...
No, I went up.
He's clicking around.
It's your turn.
Oh. Well, there was a reason I didn't react the first time that you went around. I did want to hear some of it. Garrett's initial statement, which was that why were we doing this? We're doing this based on special interest and so on and so forth. Garrett and I have had this conversation. My issue is there are no special interests. There are interests, the people who are our constituents. We represent everybody. I appreciate and understand where you're going because but that can be kind of a loaded term. Roger's position, there are no guarantees.
Right.
We go through this process on hope. Everything we do is based on that. So I'm not overly concerned. We will do it incrementally. We will be making judgments on whether or not it meets the criterion that we want to establish. To me, it's a great fit for the city of Kent. It seems to hit our value system. This is something we should be doing if no other community does it. You're absolutely right. We need to lock it down. We do need to try to do the best we can to ensure at the end of the day that this, to the best of our ability, we create an opportunity for success. It's success for our residents. I think once we start getting locked into individual constituencies, that's when we kind of have a problem. The issue to me is this is a community outreach, this is a constituent outreach. We're trying to identify areas where people are not being served or feel they're not being served. And we're trying to act on that. That's not unusual for people in government. That's what you do. That's what we're about. So I'm not overly concerned. I think it's, as Jack said, very reasonable. I think our staff is competent and capable of following through with it and getting it done. And I think what we have to do is ensure that we get that we're able to project the right image of why we're doing it. And that this is for making Kent a better place to live and create a better quality of life for everybody here. So, I am going to urge that we continue to move forward, to continue to try to identify areas of concern, which there are legitimate ones, that I think we do still have to identify. But we're kind of moving away from groupings of people and being pushed to do something. At the end of the day, however we got to this, it's an opportunity. It's a challenge, but an opportunity. It's lemonades and lemon. And we came to it with a lemon. Now we're going to make lemonade out of it. This is opportunity-based.
Way of putting it.
And we are going to, I think, meet it. There are people who think this can fail and hope it fails and so on. We're not going to let it do that. We're going to succeed.
That's it. Tracy had her hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with Dave, the connecting the dots. This is a time for this to happen. You know, just the energy is right for this to happen. I was surprised to find out with the presentations that one of the things that wasn't happening was we weren't advertising in the correct places to get the people that we wanted to get. I mean, something very simple, and I can see this person, whatever they're going to call it, doing something like that. Or finding out, I mean, how do they feel about the city? I mean, can we have, one of the suggestions that Chief Shearer had was a focus group. He wants a focus group to see from different parts of the city, different groups. How do they feel about the police force? I mean, how do they really feel? And to try to get people who are not the usual volunteers, but a mix of people who are not the usual volunteers, to really get a genuine feel of how they look at the city and things like that. And I think this person will really help that, really get people involved.
Okay, the only one, Mike, have you got anything? All right, second time around, John? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just thinking to myself, and I'll think out loud. So, you know, we look at numbers, you know, and we look at statistics for how many people work for the city of Kent that are minorities, how many this and that. And, you know, if we filled the scale up with numbers from a concentrated effort, and we had more than enough minorities working for the city, that's really not a win. That should be just a portion of what we're trying to accomplish. What a win would be is when you go to the Lions Club or you go to some of these outdoor events or all the social things and the educational things that we have going on in the city, that you see a equal balance of minorities in all of those things happening. Then we know our work is getting some recognition. Because there's only so many people working in the city of Kent. I mean, you can change them numbers pretty easy. But, you know, if we're working to change the city, you know, we have to find a way to have an outreach so people feel welcome no matter where they go, what they want to do in the city, and that they don't feel bad going to a certain club's meeting or a certain bar or a certain restaurant. You know, I had a little thing I've been doing, and very little. Spent a lot of time in waiting rooms in the hospital lately, and I'd see people of different nationalities and different colors and that, and naturally we're all masked up. I'd walk over to them, take off my mask, tell them what my name is, and ask them what their name was. And they looked surprised a little bit. I said, well, I just want to let you know that, you know, there's somebody else that's, you know, feeling your pain, and we're there to share it with you so you don't have to have the burden by yourself. And just the fact that someone different knows that you're not the bad guy. So we got a lot of work to do.
Garrett? Just 3 quick points. You know, to Roger's point about you know, filling in the gap, so to speak. He said a lot, so it's hard to remember everything he said. You know, in terms of the priority needs to be quality job applicants for quality employees and quality city employees. And I think to do that, Heidi was right on the money by saying it has to be quantifiable and measurable. So we need to set standards, and if we start off with, we want the best quality people we can get to do that. And then we say we're going to measure to see how many tests are taken, how many people are hired, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the meantime, whoever that person is goes out into the community to get that message out to the different interest groups or different parts of the community about what we're looking for and what's available, not what we're looking for, what's available for them. You know, I think that see how that would work. My third point is council voted no for more space for the new city hall because they said government wouldn't grow, and I was just going to say we're going to bring out another position. So.
Yeah. And I recall you and I fought like crazy and lost.
Is that it?
That's it. I was 3.
Heidi, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say a whole lot, except that, you know, we're struggling with the name. I think liaison is more or less one of the aspects of this position. I write job descriptions a lot as a grant writer, and you know, certainly there's different elements of a position. Research is another one. Research, and you know, basically kind of being a point person to support staff in ways. Recently we wrote a big grant, hopefully we'll get it, but we put in for a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. And that person covered many of these different aspects, and one of the main goals for my organization was really to increase the number of minority applicants, but also not just bring people on board, but help retain people, help create the kind of culture where people feel included. And that could be, you know, within the staff of the city, but also, you know, this may be a little bit more fuzzy and harder to quantify. Maybe we could see maybe more diversity at different events. but, for the community as a whole. So that welcoming community, compassionate community might factor into that. So I don't see that we have to just, box this position in necessarily. I get a little worried about being part-time. But, maybe we can just really prioritize what are the main skills we want this position to have. Certainly some outreach ability, marketing, research ability. There could be, several different skill sets that they could bring to the table. And we're never going to find the perfect person that's going to match everything, but because that's the nature of hiring. But
Heidi, is this Coleman that's looking for this person? You said something.
well, that's my organization, but we put it into a grant. It's something that comes up over and over again as a nonprofit. We are, we are asked by funders. We are truly, it's kind of like from the outside, people say, tell us about your diversity practices. But from the inside, we recognize this is a need. We value having diversity on our staff. We serve people, diverse members of the community, but we could do better at that too. Like, for example, we could do better at serving the Latino, Hispanic community. There's a lot of elements there. But yes, it is Coleman, and I think this is not unusual. This is a kind of a movement. We're jumping on a movement. We could be a leader in, for small cities or whatever in this movement. But it's not. We're not trying to invent something from whole cloth here.
Correct.
Roger.
Well, Heidi said it more eloquently than I could, that liaison would be a role, but not necessarily what this person is. And I guess that's what I'm driving at. I think if you call it a liaison, that's just one element. I think we really need that person to be able to have a variety of skill sets. But one of the most important skill sets is to help guide us, our departments, help guide our city manager, help guide us in terms of a council. How do we get any more applicants in an inclusive nature? How do we get more of them? That doesn't mean they're all going to be hired. I think, John, you're exactly right. That's not what this is all about. This is all about how do we get quality candidates from a diverse community that we all live in. How do we do that? And I think that's what's really important. I think that's what I think should be a primary focus. So liaison kind of should be just one piece of that. That's all I was driving at. Plus, I also think there will be grant money available that maybe someday this will be a full-time position, because if we design it correctly, what will happen is that there will be and it is working. There are people who want to support that, and so I think that would take the pressure off of our departments a little bit financially if we could, but we got to be pretty clear about what the goals are.
I guess the bottom result is staff is looking for direction, and it's my understanding, I think we're basically talking about a liaison, then a committee. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah. At least an individual.
An individual. So Dave, do we have a direction?
I think so. I appreciate all the comment, and it is helpful. We will, obviously, the next round of this is to start to define it better, is start to push back on you to make the choices, because Roger said a very specific thing, and he's not wrong in what he said, but other people said other stuff, and they're not wrong either. The question is, who's more right for what we're looking for, right? And that's always our dilemma. So I appreciate that.
I don't think it'll be a right and wrong. I think that maybe we'll have 4 defined goals, or 2 defined goals, or 3, and that's the point, I think, that we got to define them real clearly. That's my point, anyway.
Okay, no further discussion? We got a direction. That's it with Committee of the Whole, Community Development, Mr. Kuhorn.
Well, done with all the mundane stuff, now we're going to get into something really exciting. Bridget, you want to come up and talk about a Trex agreement?
Only if you promise an hour discussion on it. As many of you are aware, the city set up policies and procedures for Trex licenses back in 2013 when the state of Ohio allowed for licenses from another jurisdiction to be brought in. Our criteria have worked rather well. One of the most important was the investment of $175,000 per square foot of new investment. Our goal was to make sure that liquor licenses that were brought in were staying in a place that was well established. We also had a criteria that an agreement had to be entered into for the property owner and or the business Trexing in the license, that they could not just turn around and sell that license after it had been brought into the city, that the city gets to determine whether or not it stays and transitions to a new ownership. We are in that similar situation, although there's a couple variables a little different here. Secret Seller, which I can't believe I was looking at back at my memos in 2013, was
Right.
here before you. Actually, Suzanne wrote the memo and I presented it. And she was working for Dave. So Secret Seller had a license that was Trexed in. They entered into the development agreement with the city of Kent, establishing that Trex license would have to go through us before it could transition again. Mr. Burbick also had some criteria with regards to that separately with the tenant. After Secret Seller closed, it then transitioned to the Franklin Hotel Bar in 2016. They Trexed in a different type of license, but similar format. They went into a development agreement with the city. Ron kept control of that license as well. Well, while the property is under new ownership now at Acorn at Kent LLC, they are entering into a similar agreement with a proposed tenant, and I do have both Jim Antal here, the new property ownership representative, as well as Andrew Dybel, who is the principal partner in the space that will be filled. He's operating under ACES Enterprise. He can fill you in on that. I wanted to add, though, with this Trex license, so the investment has already been met and all those criteria. The development agreement that I did attach, at that time I did not have clarity on the type of permit. So before the law department does the ordinance and executes the agreement, I did want to clarify that he is actually going to be Trexing in several different smaller licenses. When added together, it's the equivalent of getting a D5. So this will have full spirits where Secret Seller and the Franklin Hotel Bar did not. There may be, he can speak to the hours of operation and the nature of the venue. So it will include a D2, which is wine and mixed beverages, beer, spiritus liquid, and allows service until 2:30 a.m. And he can speak to whether that will happen. Oh, and Sunday sales. So I'm going to let Andrew come up and just give you a minute or two discussion on the business that will be occupied in that space, because I know that you all will be interested in that. Andrew?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for hearing me. My name is Andrew Dybel. I am a resident of Kent. Been here my whole life. And I have a proven business model to take over this space. I have a couple really good relationships with Tommy Bruno from the 91.3, the Summit radio station. I've worked with Don Drum, who's a local artist. We're bringing in live, easy listening music to a atmosphere of comfort and great food with great cocktails. I've done a mixologies for 16 years, and I've come up with some really great things in that time. I also have an accounting background, so I'm kind of, master, CPA, all that stuff, so the finances and things of that nature. I'm good with the margins and understand what price points need to be down in this space. My chef has went through there, and if you all know the space, it doesn't have a full hood system, and that's not going to be attainable, so we came up with a menu that would fit the needs of what we think the community will want and need. That will be fantastic fine dining food at a price point where the average Kentite can come in and enjoy those as well. Our hours of operation, we are planning to have the kitchen open from noon until 11 on the weekdays, and then probably expand that to 12 o'clock on the weekends, and then the bar will close at business decline. Any questions?
Yeah, questions from council?
Let John do his job.
Well, I didn't know if he was done talking or
Oh.
just yet.
So, thank you for that, but the Trex license that's already there is still there, right? It doesn't leave when the business leaves, I thought?
So the
Yeah, it
license was
does.
Trexed in by the limited partnership that controlled the Franklin Hotel Bar. They did not negotiate for that license to be transferred to Andrews LLC. So that
But
Trex
that's
license.
because it's a change of ownership, right? So
Correct, it's a change of ownership. Now,
Right.
they could have worked that out, but instead they're.
that had been negotiated on the back end.
Correct.
Okay,
And
okay.
basically, those licenses are not going to be, and this is not in addition to, it's in place of.
I see,
Those
okay.
licenses are not added to our inventory of permits.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Heidi?
Do you have a name for this place?
The Standard.
Oh.
The Standard?
Yes.
And
That's an old name in Kent. It used to be Standard Drug on the corner of Water and Main Street,
Is he this thing
100 years ago.
Is he worth a
You're
quarter?
the only one who would know that.
John might know that.
John might know that.
The other,
So you own the building, or you're leasing the space?
I'll be leasing the space.
Okay.
The new ownership group that bought the Berwick properties will maintain control of the property still.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? Tracy?
Yeah, what are some things on your menu? I'm kind of interested.
Oh, you can pull it up. I love it.
So we have a couple different bases, and again, my chef has only been into the space one time, looked around, and came up with this light menu until he's able to get in there and actually work his magic. But we have things like bruschetta. We're doing different types of bruschetta. I can't even pronounce some of these words.
Must be good.
We have
yeah.
like
Good chef.
yeah, carpaccio, chair shoot boards. We have different types of salads, pierogies, pimento cheeses, salmon BLTs, flatbreads, a different type of briskets, and a good array of salads. So that's just to start it, so we'd have something to kind of build off and look for the demand around the community and what people would want. And then I've actually come up with a concept. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the boba teas.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new business, but it's a niche concept. So I've been able to create those in cocktails. So I'm doing a boba cocktail. So I can do all types of flavors and come up with some great martinis, and again, very good cocktails that are forward-thinking and innovative.
Heidi?
So the target kind of public that you're wanting to attract to the business, is it more of a sort of an adult?
Yes, so definitely I'm looking for the hole that we're missing at the community, because when I walk around, I'm 40 years old, and I walk into any of these spaces and I feel like I'm out of place. I feel like it's run by kids, and I feel like I'm looking at 12-year-olds. And again, that's kind of why I want to bring in some of the local talents. Like we have I think a music and art, or a art and wine festival coming up, and some of the bands that will be playing at that down at the hometown square, they'll actually be coming to my space on a monthly basis on Fridays. So my plan is to have a house band on Tuesdays. I'll have an open mic on Thursdays, and then an actual local artist who would come in. These will all be acoustic sets, so there won't be like loud drumming all hours of the night, and it's kind of going to be a little more upscale but affordable.
Got a follow-up to that.
Please.
So, in addition to cocktails, will you will you be curating some wines?
Yeah, we'll definitely have a really good wine list. I'm sure if we're doing cheese and meat boards, we'll have to have a great wine pairing list for sure.
Sounds like you got your first customer.
Waiting for this place to reopen.
Roger?
And you've lived here your whole life, like you said, so there have been other enterprises in that space. From your perspective, what do you think, why did they fail? I'm going to use that expression. Why?
Point of order.
Yeah.
I just, it's interesting, but I don't think it's specifically relevant. What his business model or his opinion of other businesses.
Okay, can I ask him about his business then? Why do you think your business will succeed?
Well, being that I am in the community and have been here my whole life, I think that I have a good foundation. A couple years back, I've started my own accounting business. I am a coach for the Kent Youth Football Program. I started a nonprofit where at this moment I'm trying to put together a youth workout space, like something that I feel like we're missing. So I'm really trying to come to serve the community. When I was younger, things were, on your point from this last discussion that I listened to, I was just thinking, there are a bunch of groups that are being missed, and I think you guys are doing the right thing with that, and I think I have a target to where I can reach out to those people because I know a lot of them on where they're from, and I think that I can definitely bring the community together in a good, positive light.
Great. That's great.
Anybody else? Anybody from the audience? Are you done also, Bridget?
Yes. I just would request that it be approved with emergency, please.
Okay.
So we need a motion?
Yep.
But I would like to make a motion to approve the Trex liquor license as described with the emergency clause.
I'll second that.
Second by Jack. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Discussion.
Do we need any more discussion?
No.
Now
Thank
vote.
you. Okay. Opposed?
Yeah.
Passes.
Or he can't do alcohol. Right.
And that concludes the exciting community development.
Thank you all so much.
Hey,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck with that, yeah.
We'll be there.
We
I
hope.
told you it was going to be a good one.
Health and Public Safety, Mr. Amrine.
Yes, Joan is going to come up to.
No.
No? Is it Hope?
We put that on there in case we had finished.
Oh, it's not done?
It's not done.
Okay.
We're close.
So I have nothing.
You got nothing.
I've got nothing. You got a lot, but you got nothing right now.
Land Use Committee, Mr. Ferrera.
So I've called to order the Land Use Committee. We've got the proposed zoning code map amendments.
Ready. I thought there was like one in between. I'm like, oh, that's me. Okay, I am here actually for two items that were actually covered in one memo, but just for the record, I will need those approved as two separate motions. But since they are connected, I'm going to discuss them one and then the other. So as everyone is aware, the proposed annexation for the parcel where the former Oak Nose Golf Course was on was before council last month and was authorized. That paperwork is being processed. The petition is, I believe, almost finalized. We thought it was finalized, but we had to get something else from the township, another certification. So once that's done, it will be filed at the county. In anticipation of that, last month we took the proposed map amendment to the Planning Commission, because once that parcel is officially annexed and within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city, it has to have a designated zoning district. So the zoning district that was recommended to the Planning Commission and approved unanimously was for the parcel, I won't read the parcel number, the parcel beginning 12 that's in Franklin Township, and it's to basically at the time of annexation for that zoning to be brought into the RI standard, which is what it is across the street at the current location. That's for industrial research and office district. We also, at the same time, talked to Davey about the former Franklin School parcel, which was within the jurisdiction of the city, but is zoned R1, because it is going to be consolidated with the Oak Knolls Golf Course. We took to Planning Commission and got a unanimous recommendation for that also to be zoned IR, so that parcel then across the street all match, so we are not creating spot zoning, nor do we have to deal with parcel coming back with a separate parcel at a later date. The Planning Commission supported all of the proposed map amendments, and as a reminder, these are two different map amendments, so every permitted and conditionally permitted use that's allowed in the IR could potentially go there. The action and the annexation are being done in support of Davies' development. However, I did want to make clear that there is that possibility at some point, many years from now, that if we're Davy to cease operations there, all the permitted and conditionally permitted uses would be available to be on that site, and I did include those in the memo. At this point, I can take any questions about either of the proposed map amendments.
Heidi?
Yes. The IR district. I don't remember seeing an IR district in Kent.
It's because Davy's the only one right now. So the IR, where their west campus is the only zoning district designated that. But I will say, I'll be before you in about another month. So at the Planning Commission, that designation of industrial research and office district, which by the way, it was named that when I came, and I think it's been named that for decades, created a lot of consternation for some members of the public. Industrial has a term that could result in what does that mean on that site. So we did go through and we read for the record the conditionally, or I should say the chair, read the conditionally permitted and the permitted uses for that. Because there are some other housekeeping items that we need to have text amendments done, talking with staff, we have decided to propose a new name for the IR. It would not change any of the permitted or conditionally permitted uses, but we're proposing research technology and office space because
RTO.
Catchy, huh? RTO. It has to be a good acronym, so we worked on several. I did. I looked at many cities. I was like, ooh, that's a bad one. I actually like one other one better, but this one by vote. So we will be taking that to Planning Commission next week for discussion. It will be, again, just a text amendment. But there is, the industrial use would be the equivalent of the way it is written would be, for example, medical research, medical marijuana research, where it's inside, completely enclosed. So it is not the type of industrial that we have in our standard I district, which is along the areas like St. Clair and where you're more familiar with those types of tool and die shops and heavy machinery running.
Mm-hmm. So mostly it's a focus on office.
Correct.
But,
and research and education. So their science and education is the focus, and that is going to be referenced more in the title, subject to Planning Commission's approval of that proposed recommendation. But it really did cause some confusion. And I don't know where the name came from at first, but we just thought it might be more appropriate for the current uses, and now that we're going to have actually two large parcels with that same designation.
Right, set a precedent.
Yeah.
Further from council? Anything from the audience? Anyone from the audience? Back to council. You would like that with emergency?
Yes, and they're two separate.
Two separate. So let's. How about on the first parcel number 12?
Move to approve with emergency.
Second. Mike Scott.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion. No. Motion passes. And then for the second parcel?
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Discussion? Motion passed. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
We kind of slid that one in.
Nice try, Gary.
That's it. That's going to be a great addition to the city and area.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
I think Mr. Bowling's coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, Jim's always trying to make sure he's got job security, so he's always coming up with new projects. So he's got another one to pitch here, an agreement for a project on the east side of town.
So in 2020, Portage and Franklin Township got a grant to do a study of State Route 59 in East Main Street from Horning Road to 261, and its focus was to make it more suitable for pedestrian, bicyclists, and Their study's done and it's online if you wanted to look at it. The study basically reallocates some of the land in the right-of-way. Takes a few feet away from the pavement, doesn't affect the number of lanes or anything like that, but then reassigns that to sidewalks and tree lawns, which does make a big difference. So the cost was estimated at $4.2 million, and we looked at available grant sources to get this work done, and we feel that there's a high likelihood that they would be successful. So the agreement brought to you today would have all three parties working together to pursue grant funding to start to the next steps of the project. And if we're successful with this stage, then we would come back with another agreement to move on to the next steps. So we're here requesting your approval to execute the agreement with the township and PARTA.
Questions?
Is this the result of the bus ride that PARTA and council members were invited to see how people actually use that, where you got off at different stops there?
Yes, that was part of it.
Fantastic. Okay, I think this is. I'm glad to hear it, and we've got residents there in like mobile home, like housing.
High-density housing.
Thank you.
You're
High-density
welcome.
housing. I apologize for that. I think that's oldie-timey expression. But yeah, that, and then we've got a lot of people crossing the street. It's really a very dangerous spot. I'm very pleased to hear that we're going to pursue this. I think for mass transportation and safety, this is good stuff. So thanks.
Further? Heidi?
Yeah. So, yeah, I love the pedestrian, the sense that you're away from the road when you're walking parallel to the road. One of my biggest concerns is crossing that road, that road, whatever it is. And I've seen people, standing in the middle, in the turning lanes with dark clothing at dusk, and lots of crossing issues. Is there anything that had been studied for that issue?
Yes, and I didn't put the full study in the memo, but the project also would include several mid-block crossing points with refuge islands in the middle of the roadway where we don't need the left turn, the dual left turn lane. So that's part of the $4.2 million cost.
Yeah, and they would be kind of like where people want to cross right now.
Absolutely, and to be paired with the bus stops that are in that area, because if you're riding the bus and you get put off, if you take off on the one side of the road and your destination's on the other, you have to cross the street. So that makes transit work better.
Correct. And also the high-density housing, getting to
That's
the other
correct.
side of the street where there's shopping opportunities and things like that. Wonderful. Thank you.
Further questions? Anyone in the audience have anything? Back to council?
Do we need a motion?
Need the emergency?
Yes, please, with emergency.
Move to approve.
To approve with emergency.
I'll second Glenn.
Third.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes. You're on number 2 now.
For some reason, that's been dinner
Still up there.
conversation at mine.
Yes, so we're coming here tonight to recommend 2 projects to submit for Ohio Public Works Commission funding. One is at the wastewater plant, the water reclamation facility. As you know, we've talked about that the last 3 or 4 years, that there's a significant amount of rehabilitation needed for the plant. The digester heat exchangers is the biggest project in that $15 million worth of work. And this grant request would be asking for $700,000 in grants and $1.5 million in no-interest loans, coupling that with ARPA funds and sewer funds to come up with the $7 million needed to rehab the heat digesters at the water reclamation facility. And if we can successfully get through this one, then we'll get through the major crisis we've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years. So.
Do you want to do these separately?
No, we don't
No?
have to.
Okay.
And then the second project is on Summit Street. It's called a resurfacing from 43 to Willow, but actually it's really a rehabilitation because it would include all the sidewalks except next to Flats, which is just new, and drive aprons and curbs from 43 to Willow Street.
That's all.
Questions? Heidi?
Yeah, so I was going to ask about the driveway aprons, and, you know, this street, I guess this is more of a comment than a question. I think that it would very much improve not just the safety of it, but the look of it, and it is a gateway to the university. So I think that's really wonderful that that's being looked at. Thank you.
Further questions? Anybody from the audience? Almost forgot. Back to council?
Move to approve the emergency.
Second.
Okay, moved, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you very much.
Jim, you're done.
Nice job.
Heritage Festival fireworks. Jerry, are you going to do this? Says,
Yeah, Michelle Hartman, interim director for the chamber, had another conflict, so she couldn't come. In your packet, I'm sure you've seen the March 22nd letter that she has sent to council, or actually sent to me, and it was forwarded to council. Historically, we've paid for the fireworks for Heritage Festival. This year, there's been a price increase like everything else, and most of it is due to the shipping of the material over here. And the cost of the fireworks this year are going to be $16,900. It was $13,200 the previous years. This will give us a 17-minute firework display, which is the same time that we've had previously. American Fireworks did guarantee us this price of $16,900 would be froze for this year and the next 2 previous years. So the chamber has asked us, and we'll again support by paying for the fireworks for the Heritage Festival. I'll answer any questions. Heidi? Oh, wait.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're the chairman.
You're doing fine.
Step over here.
Yeah, you'd like to take charge.
Well, I don't know if they shopped around for the fireworks, the cost of maybe going to a different vendor.
There's not a lot of vendors out there. They've been with this company since day one, and I'll speak for myself. I'm not actually speaking for the chamber. They've been very fair up to us, including they worked with us year before last when we canceled it, and they carried our deposit on to the next year. So they worked with us.
That matters. So I have another.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I have a second.
Go ahead.
So I see this. We're not going to have like food trucks and things like that. Will that upset our local food trucks?
We did not have them last year. And the comments that came back to us, and really that's not what we're talking about right now, was that people kind of enjoyed it. I had to look up what the word carny was, but it was brought to my attention. People really didn't miss the carnies that were down there. What the chamber is doing with this now, they're bringing it back to a local event. There's going to be some, my understanding, and I'm probably stepping out of bounds by saying this, but there are going to be some local people representing churches and that down there. One's going to make kettle corn, and I can't remember. Somebody's going to be making, I think it's candy cotton, and maybe selling snow cones, something to that effect. But it's going back to what its original concept was, and not to bring up a bad name. When Mary Drongowski had it, it was all the social groups in the city of Kent that had their different little raffles and food sales and that, and it's kind of coming back down to what it used to be in that concept. But with the virus, like everything else, the virus affected everything, and they're kind of rebuilding it.
Is there any more questions about the fireworks? I'm trying to keep us online here.
Bang.
Yeah, okay. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions?
Move to authorize with emergency.
Second.
I just would say it's a fabulous event. People love it. It was an excellent show last year, and even now, more so than last year, people coming out of COVID are looking for something exciting to do and celebrate, and it brings all those people to downtown Kent, and it promotes the businesses that are down there and gives them an opportunity to make some money. So it's a win-win.
Further discussion?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this serves everyone in the city of Kent. I think everyone loves fireworks, and I think as a local government, I think we're doing everyone a service by promoting it and sponsoring it and paying for it. So I have no problems with it.
Sure.
Is it my understanding the motion is only for this year,
No.
even though they're gonna guarantee the,
Would it be for all?
for all 3 years?
For all 3 years.
Sorry, yeah.
And
That, I
second for all
I
3
just
years.
want that clear.
And I second for all 3 years.
All right.
So,
But that price guarantee, you have to do
yeah,
that.
lock it in.
Be foolish not to.
You got all that, Amy?
Got it.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you, Jerry. Chief Shearer, body armor.
Good evening. Thanks for the time this evening. Coming to you with a request similar to the requests I've had in the past for a body armor grant. It's the same grant program. It's called the Ohio Law Enforcement Body Armor Grant Program. We apply through the Ohio Attorney General's office, but it's funded through the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. This particular grant this year, they're willing to award us $4,807.24. And we're required to pay a 25% match of that, which is $1,602.41. The grant essentially it's replacing body armor that's expiring on some officers, and it's also providing body armor to our newly hired officers. So I would request that you approve that with emergency.
Do you, I have it.
Okay.
So do you have the match money in the budget?
Yes.
Further questions? Anybody in the audience?
John has
Oh,
his hand
John,
up.
I didn't see you.
What do you do with the old armor?
The old armor, so I believe it was a council resolution or a council ordinance that was passed several years ago when Chief Lee came here for this. When we issue a new piece of body armor, we do collect the old body armor back. That can be used for different training scenarios that we do, and there are times where we've looked at different programs where we can get that body armor to maybe departments that don't have the money. I mean, it's expired, but it's better than nothing, I guess.
John?
How long does it take to expire?
5 years. Virtually any body armor, soft body armor at least, that we would wear on duty for patrol work, every company out there expires in 5 years.
Further? Anybody in the audience? Back to council?
To authorize with emergency.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, now we're doing the canine. I just said, okay, oh, yeah. Oh, the vest for the dogs.
Yeah, so this is a new thing for us. We've never had this happen before, but there's an organization called Brady's Canine Fund. One of our canine officers was familiar with, and he reached out to them. In brief conversations with them, they offered to donate a ballistic vest for his canine. The value of that particular ballistic vest is $1,500, and they've already proposed the donation of the vest to us. So I'm just here to ask that we can accept that donation of a ballistic vest for the canine.
Is that fitted specifically for that canine?
Yes, it is.
I think so, ma'am.
You didn't ask about the men, though, did you?
I know that it's fitted for the...
For the officers,
For the
I should say.
officers.
Yeah, the officers.
I know that
There are some women in there, okay?
I know.
Right.
Gary, go ahead.
What didn't somebody donate last year, or a person or civic organization or some group for the canine bulletproof vests?
Yes, we have had it in the past, not from this particular organization, and it wasn't for this particular dog. So the dog that this is being donated for is only about just over a year working now.
And how many dogs do you have on the force?
2.
2.
Further questions?
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience? Back to council.
Move to authorize with emergency.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 more dogs to make up the difference between the cost of the fireworks.
Sorry. That's so funny, though.
I said 2 more dogs and we'll make up the cost of the fireworks. Yeah.
That is good.
So you have in your packet a memo that I supplied to the city manager dated May 23rd, 2022, for our third budget appropriation amendment. I'm requesting that you pass the amendment, but if you have any questions.
Any questions, council? Seeing none. Anybody from the audience? Back to council.
We have to trust her. She just got an award.
Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well done.
John moved it. Looked for a second.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
There you go.
I need to call an executive session for boards, commission, and committee applicant review.
Who seconds it?
Second.
Mike, call the roll.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeon?
I just saw that.
Mr. Ferrara? Mr. Ferrara?
Hey, Garrett.
Hey, Chief. Hey, Chief,
Mr.
by the
Kuhar?
way,
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish? Yes. Mr. Sidoti? Mr. Turner? Ms. Wallach?
We'll give it 5 minutes to clear the room.
Oh, look at that red jacket. Man, they must be paying good money to their
I have to
face.
run out of here.
I'm excited about that. That's good
There's
stuff.
chaos
Hey,
at
Jim.
my house.
There what?
Chaos at my house.
Look, he never got in?
Our pumps are filling
Yes,
up,
yes.
our basement's flooded.
Oh, I have a,
No electricity.
No,
You think I'm a
I might
mind
be
reader?
late.
How would I know?
We'll
I mean, you
handle
know,
Send the dog in, you stay home.
I've been working on,
He
I
probably
don't
has
need to know all this
paper
stuff. I know.
working